You're going to want to stick around for this conversation, I promise you, because we're going to be talking about quite a bit as it relates to the future of work and again, getting insight from these experts. So we're going to be hearing from these leaders, not just talking about AI, but actually what it looks like building it into their systems and teams every single day. And so joining us first and foremost is Manesh John. Manesh is the VP of Design at Asana, representing their product and design team, sharing insights into how they've approached building AI Studio. Manesh, welcome to the panel today. Thank you so much. How you doing?
Thank you, Marty. I'm doing amazing.
Great. It's good to see you. Thank you for taking the time and being here. Always great to connect with our partners at Asana, and great. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say today.
Awesome.
Next, we have, of course, our very own Marquis Murray. She is a strategic solutions engineer at Cirface, bringing her expertise in how AI is transforming the ways teams manage requests and workflows in Asana. And you're going to hear from Maggie a bit later in one of her workshops. You're definitely going to want to attend that. Maggie, how are you feeling?
Great. I'm so glad to be there. I see that there's a lot of people from everywhere around the planet. So I love traveling. I take everybody's name and I'm going to chat with you. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, perfect. That's what I was saying. I saw some people who are in San Diego and Southern California where I'm at right now. I'm like, hey, let's meet up. Joining us on the panel as well will be Aiden Mirzai. He's the CEO of Fellow and the host of the popular This New Way podcast. Podcast all around AI and the different ways that companies across the globe are utilizing AI day to day. He's been leading Fellow as they shift into an AI powered meeting productivity and note taker. And so we're going to be having a great conversation today. But Aiden will jump in here in a moment. But why don't we get the conversation going? Manesh, I actually wanted to start with you. I'd love to know from your perspective. There is so much that, in practice, or in theory, I should say, makes sense, or maybe it doesn't make sense, about the ways that work is changing. We've seen over the past year, even this shift from generative AI into more agentic AI. We're seeing a lot more of these systems. And so I'd love, Manesh, if you can just answer the question, like, what does this shift from Gen AI to more agentic AI mean in practice? What does this actually look like? And for you, how is this showing up in your teams or the teams that you work with today?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Mark. And I think all of us are in this journey of like actually experiencing this AI change. What generative AI did was it gave us a lot of like powerful tools for creating content. But the next wave is very different, right? Agentic AI changes that whole paradigm. It's not just about producing an output, it's about taking that and acting on behalf of people, right? The quick story that I have in my head is like, generative is giving you a recipe book to go cook something. I love food, so all of my stories will be around food. Trust me. But then agentic is more like having a sous chef who's right there in the weeds with you, cooking that meal. Like sometimes the water is boiling too much or the food is getting overcooked. They know when to turn it off and take the right action on your behalf, right? So for me, in practice, it's like moving from ask and receive to delegate and trust. Right. So within teams in a workflow automation where AI doesn't just draft answers, now totally it'll shift towards like, can it update a project plan? Like, can it route approvals to the right people? Can it nudge teammates on something that's being held up or is on wait so that the action can move forward faster and we can get to an outcome? So for me personally, this shift is AI being like a tool to AI being more like a participant. It's in the weeds like that sous chef, and it's very, very exciting. Like I've been playing around with some of the things we have been building, as well as experiencing some of the other agentic tools that are out there. And I can really feel like there's a co-partner working with me and accelerating my productivity.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Maggie, what are your thoughts, right? We're shifting from Gen AI to agentic AI. What does this look like in practice for teams today?
Yes, thank you for asking. This is really a great question. I love the answer from Manesh too. And I think I'm pretty aligned with what you're saying, Manesh. I feel like the shift from generative AI to agentic AI means we move from tools that simply generate content on request to AI that actually act autonomously or can make decision or can execute workflow on behalf of the team. In Asana with AI Studio, we can see those generative AI when we use AI Studio to automate task routine or smart suggestions or proactive follow-up, which enables us to not fall task into cracks or to make sure that we are always aligned with our due date or sending notification on our behalf. For my client, I've seen teams streamlining their marketing requests, but also project intake and approval. I feel like AI can help to ensure that nothing fall into the cracks, and it gives freedom to team to really focus on their strategic and creative work rather than focusing on changing due date or changing task or renaming. So it really gives freedom to team to work on high value added work rather than non value added for them.
That's perfect. I love that. Thank you, Maggie. And Aiden, welcome. Good to see you here. I'd love to hear from you as well. But Aiden, for you, I mean, I'm going to ask a bit of a different question. A lot of what I want to focus on today is demystifying what agentic AI even means and what that means. I said earlier that people are somewhat fearful, right, about what AI moving in their day to day could actually look like. And for you, Aiden, specifically, you speak with leaders, thought leaders, around AI every single day on your platform. Um, what does this mean for us, right? Think about the individual contributor. Yes, we're now faster, right? We're more productive. What does this mean? Because I've heard a lot of people think like, okay, great, now I'm more productive. I'm just going to get more work put on my plate, right? I'm just going to have more workload, and maybe we don't want this, and maybe there's going to be resistance to this. So, what's your experience been? If that with that lens on now, where it's like, no, we don't want to add more work, right? There's a positive upside to it. At least I think so. But what are your thoughts there, Aiden?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of contrarian takes on all of this stuff. So the the way I like to think about, I mean, even going back a little bit to the previous question, generative versus agentic. Generative is like the kind of stuff that you would do if you're a first line manager and you just became a manager, right? So you kind of go to the employee and you're like, do this. When you're done, let me know. And then I'll check that. And then I'll tell you the next thing to do. And and then, the more experienced manager, the VP, the leader will be more transformational leadership. It'll be like, this is the outcome I want. This is kind of like the direction to head. Here's some tools that you can use to make decisions to help you along the way, but you go figure out how you're going to do the work. In terms of like the way that this materializes now for people is that I think everybody is moving up the stack. So all of a sudden, your individual contributor can now be like the transformational leader, right? Working with agents that are going to do the work. So you have to be really good at describing the outcome, laying like the framework and the groundwork, and like let the agents do the dirty work. So what's happening is like even the people in the um, traditional like starting level of an organization are going to more act like leaders and move up the stack. So it's very, very interesting. So the thing that I will also say is that, and where I have a contrarian take on this as well, is people say, oh, organizations are going to have less people because now you can just, you can have AI and AI is going to do all the work. The way I like to see it is that all of a sudden now every single employee can be 10x more valuable. And if you told me that I can have this person that is now 10x more valuable, do I want less of them or more of them? Like we live in this competitive world. I'm going to have as many of them as possible, and I'm going to try and have the most competitive, the most productive ones as possible, because I want to win against my competition. And the other thing that I want to say is, like, there's also another contrarian thought I have, because we're starting to see a lot of data from people saying, oh, new grads are screwed because they're not going to be able to find jobs. We're only going to hire the super experienced people because they know the tasks, and we don't need the things for the people who are straight out of school. I don't know about you guys, but, like, if I were to go back into the early parts of my career, if I had AI at that point to help me, to teach me, this tutor that never gets tired, I could stay up late and patient, and it's a PhD in every subject all at once, and I can access it for $20 a month. Are you kidding me? I would get like 20 years of experience in 1 year. So there's massive arbitrage available in finding those growth-minded early folks that want to come in and learn things very quickly. So these are two things that are, like, I'm hearing a lot of, and I, like, very much disagree with. And I think the future is very bright. We're going to do high-level work. We're going to do a lot more of it. We're going to be more productive as a society, and the rate at which humanity will advance will accelerate rapidly because of it.
Thank you for that take. I love that. And when you said, like 10xing the productivity of these people, don't we want more of them? Like, yeah, like I want more of that, like real person, not just the person pushing buttons or checking off boxes. It's like, for me, like, great, you have more time now. You can think, you can iterate, you can be creative. And as a founder, right, like, we have a great team here at Surface, but like, for a lot of our programs and incentives, like, they don't just have to come from me anymore, right? We can give our people time to think about, what does better look like? How can we produce better? How can we wow our customers? How can we show up for them? And so I love that angle. And to your point, I'm thinking back now, Aiden, to like university days, cramming, for that exam, or that, writing that paper at like 3 in the morning, right? Like, if we had access to these tools, you got to think, how much would I have learned? But like, we would have been able to produce so much more, and cut out a lot of the back and forth, or the manual aspects of a lot of that work as well. So appreciate those takes. We're going to come back to a few of those points. Manesh, I'd love to hear from you, if you can expand on some of what Aiden said, but through the lens of how Asana thinks about this, like teammates as an example. What what was that supposed to look like? What was kind of the thought when it was first conceptualized? Where are we at right now? Are we any closer to this, this space that Aiden's, kind of, leading us to? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I love the way Aiden put it. It's like 10xing somebody's productivity, and we've all gone through this learning curve. Of, like, there are certain skills that we love or wish we had, but we're like slowly getting there, slowly growing. And I think AI teammates can come in and make us that much more faster on that journey. So the way Asana is thinking about it is like, if we have AI teammates, it's not going to take away anybody's job. Like, in my head, the theory I have is, if you think about it in a very constructive way, you're like doubling your company if every person in your company has an AI teammate working with you, right? So for us, the core crux of what we are building is, can it reduce the burden on low value work, right? Everybody goes through day in and day out summarizing meetings, pulling insights, drafting updates, like chasing behind dependencies, right? And these are all things that can be so easily done without a human kind of like going and chasing multiple tools in multiple places where context is scattered. So we are working towards the world where Asana can help free up people so that they can do more creative work, focus on building more better products, better teams, going on that track. Whereas AI teammates can come in and do all of the low level value and work that can accelerate for you to get to an outcome faster. So we are very close internally. Truth to be told, we've been already testing it out in the product. Soon it will be there in the customer's hands, so you can all experience it as well. But it's really, really powerful. Like for me, things that I'm like, oh, I have to go look at my inbox to find something out. Imagine how quick an agent can track and say, okay, I know what Manesh would do in this context, and I'm going to assign it to this other person who might be the right person to carry this forward, right? And that could be waiting in my inbox for an hour or two if I'm stuck up in another meeting. And if an agent can proactively push that forward, we have moved the work forward, right? And that's great, isn't it? And so if everybody starts to think about it from that lens, I think we will start to see agents become that much more like acclimated within organizations. I was looking at a stat yesterday. Around quarter of the companies that have started using generative AI, by the end of the year, will at least start to have one agentic AI in their whole realm, and that number could be expected to like double in 2 years time, right? So that's telling us a lot that there is appetite. The people that have been like early adopters are starting to see value. So I think we just have to get on that curve to start thinking about, okay, how can it help me personally or my team at the end of the day?
My eyes were going crazy and I was smiling there a little bit. But you can't say something like that and not give us more. Can you say anything else about what Asana has cooking? I love the concept of just like inbox notification, right? I have this context on Marquis and what he would do and how he would respond to this, or maybe we can delegate this to someone. Is that what's going on? Can you give us any more information?
I don't want to spill all the beans, but because you asked, imagine a world where there are baked in teammates available for you to take run with. And imagine a world where you can like curate and build a teammate for a specific purpose. The best way to put it is, if you have a bunch of new grads, you would kind of like steer them to kind of like take on specific roles within your team to kind of like drive your team and your organization forward. Imagine you can do the same thing with AI teammates, right? Like you come there, give a purpose to them, give some behavioral context of how they have to act, give them documentation and stuff that will give them that tribal knowledge of how your organization operates, and they will be able to take that and run with it. And you can also give them a specific role, right? So you don't need to have all agentic teammates running around as generic teammates. Give them a specific purpose, right? And you will start to see a lot of this covered. So I don't want to spill too much of the beans, but it's working.
No, that's great. This is a worldwide exclusive. You heard it here first. Asanathon 2020. This is why people show up, right? They want to get the behind the scenes on what's going on. This is great. Thank you so much for that. And this is for anyone. Feel free to jump in. But what does governance look like? We're creating these agents, teammates, right? Wherever they live in Asana, they live in Claude, they live in Google's agent space, they live in Glean. Like, who governs this? Who manages them? Are we leaving it to the person doing the job to essentially delegate and outsource their work to this agent? Is this being managed at a high level administrative level, right? Like, what does this actually look like in practice? I know we're talking theoretical a lot, but like we're all just predicting and trying to understand where we go from here. So, what does governance look like? Who owns these things, and how do we manage all of this?
I think for everybody, it's just important to start with something super small in creating these things, right? And typically, like the way that you can arrive as to like what would I use an agent for? What is the first thing that I could use an agent for? It's really just picking, person or role, department, whatever, and then just like monitoring their day and just thinking about the things that they do all the time. What are things that they would do all the time, but they just don't have the time to do every single time? So, for example, after a customer call, I may want to do these three things and send the follow up email in this particular way. But when things get busy, I don't get a chance to do that, or I don't do it on time, or my emails are not that great. And then just kind of like breaking that apart and saying, well, how does the best person on my team do it? Imagine if we could get every single person on my team to do it like the best person and do it every single time and do it effortlessly. Like that's kind of like the idea. And in terms of like who would manage it, uh, we're seeing like different parts of the organization manage it, but typically it's in kind of like the operations, department. Sometimes if you're in the sales org, it may be like there's now this term go to market engineering, right? So sometimes it could be those folks, it could be regular operations folks, and smaller teams it could be really anyone. But there is some benefit to centralize these workflows and things that you're building, because you don't want overlap. You don't want the same thing built twice. and you really want to make sure that the same workflows are being run. So yeah, so far I'm seeing it more in terms of operations folks doing this kind of thing, and then in smaller teams, whatever that the person on your team is that would focus on this stuff. And sometimes it's, people are building like AI councils internally, or they're building a group of like AI forward people, and they go department by department. They figure out like what's the highest level thing that we can help automate. So that's a flavor of stuff that I'm seeing so far.
Maybe Maggie, we'll go to you.
Thank you. I just want to jump in with what Hayden, you said. I feel like it's really important to have a government, not only at the operational level, but also at a strategic level, because sometimes the operational team will also be impacted by the sales team or the marketing team or the finance team. And it's important to have like this kind of overview on all the tools we're using, how we can integrate AI, not only in a particular department, but as a whole in the enterprise, and seeing it as a strategic objective to actually automate our whole company, but starting phase by phase, I think is pretty interesting, because yes, operation usually have the most value added with the integration of AI, but we also see a lot of integration, for example, between HubSpot and Asana, or Salesforce and Asana. And then it can continue with some other software that we integrate with Asana that help us to create those kind of streamlined workflow all across the organization. And I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding according to AI. So having somebody that really understand AI, but not only AI, but also IT and architecture is pretty important, because if we just focus on what is AI, it can be anything, right? You can use AI for whatever you want, but it needs to be aligned with the objective and the strategic goal of the enterprise. So you need to have like this kind of IT level understanding and also the strategic understanding to make sure that you're taking great decision for your enterprise. So I will let Manish continue.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. You need some IT level strategy, because the real risk I see is noise and fragmentation, right? So just imagine a world, and it's happening very soon, where you will have 10 different AI agents talking to each other. So there's like one from the Google suite, one from Salesforce, one from Asana, one from 5 other products you might have in your stack, and they're all talking to each other, sometimes with or without context, and they might become overwhelming for a team, right? So as we are designing this, I think the one important part that we're keeping in mind, or two important parts we're keeping in mind, is how do we give governance and control. So in this case, if the AI is doing something and you can kind of go back, look at an audit log and figure out why it did something and what it did, that will be a big win, right? So you have transparency around what it's doing and why it's doing. And the other aspect is giving you control to kind of like teach it, right? There is an important element that we all own, is like continuing to help teach and adapt your AI to work well for you. So in this case, like I was looking at an example where it was writing with M for dashes, and we don't like M for dashes within the company. And we're like, okay, hey, don't use M for dashes. And that's it. It learned it. Next time it writes something or it responds to something, you don't see that happening, right? So that is another responsibility that we have in this whole governance context, is like keeping a check on things at an IT level and a team level. And the other part is continuing to kind of coach it to work well for you.
Thank you for that. I love when you said teaching and the aspect of even reviews, right? Right now, if we're using AI, we can go in and we can, kind of give it additional context if it missed something, or in a chat sequence, we can say, "Oh no, you did this. Don't do that." The M dash is a great example. I don't think anyone likes the M dashes. I don't know if it's just like a cultural thing now, where like if you use them, like you're gonna get called out. I don't know, but yes, being able to go in and like review the AI and give it, additional instructions to better fine tune the results that it's outputting. You're also making me think about like policies and procedures, right? Having that central governance body within an organization, right? Like, how are we going to use AI? What are we not going to use it for? What information are we not going to give it? How is it not going to be used? And I think that's just as important as people are exploring and testing it, right? And I think that's why, Aiden, to your point, right, we have these councils or centers of excellence set up where we're testing and we're running it through its paces and creating these policies. But the policy is only as good as the enforcement we put behind it, and then the training we give our people as well. So thank you so much for that. Maggie, I'd love to go to you. I mean, you're going to be talking about a few of these things later, but anyone who's maybe hesitant about this or doesn't know how to approach building, these agents, this could be, inside of Asana, this could be, elsewhere, but, what are the simplest ways that we can approach this? What are some real live use cases that we may even be, prescribing for different teams that we work with? I'd love to get your thoughts on how to really get started with it.
Yes, totally. I think on the point of Aiden, earlier, he said that choose a workflow. So that's the first thing. You need to identify a workflow, something that you would like to improve. And rather than looking at it like a big thing, start with small control experiments. So I would say if you choose a workflow and you know what are the result that you want to achieve, start a control experiment instead of going too wide, and draft what you want. So for example, you can start with drafting summaries or suggesting task assignment with a AI Studio in Asana. And while you're testing it, I would say also go into the AI, in the task of the AI, and look at why is this, for example, suggestion have been made by AI. So you can really understand the reasoning underneath the action of an AI tool. For Asana, it's really useful because you can see it directly in the rule that got triggered, for example. So I would say to feel more confident according to the usage of AI Studio, start small and look into the reasoning of AI, understand why AI have been triggered or have acted in a way. And if you don't like it, change it. Go back into your rule, adjust your guidance, make sure that it's really aligned to what you want and the need of your team. You can give examples. You can also add attachments. So there's so many things that you can do to make sure that it's really aligned to your need. So I would say if you want to have confidence in the AI, help him to help you.
Good. Manesh, Aiden, any other thoughts? I know, Aiden, you shared a little bit there. Manesh, any thoughts on how we can approach this and better utilize the tool, or at least like get started with AI?
Yeah, I would say apply to, like, similar to Maggie, like apply to one essential element that is very repetitive and you want to kind of like see that progress or be faster. Like a good way to put it is like in a year from now, agents should feel like it's essential but invisible, like Wi-Fi, right? It's always there. You all use it, but it's there. It's not on your face, right? But it's doing something very essential and critical for you. So apply it to those use cases, see some good wins, and then post that, start to kind of like widen or broaden that territory, right? So for a team, think about one way it can help you, apply that, make everybody feel comfortable. I think the most important part is bringing people along in the journey, not just feeling like, oh, the early adopters are the ones that are going to be power users, but bring everybody along, right? Like everybody experience it, see something that's valuable enough to their everyday life, and then slowly it'll start to pick up traction. Another stat to kind of lay out here why this is moving so fast is out of all the companies, like 78% of the organizations that use AI already have at least one business function that's totally adopted it, right? And almost like if you do surveys and see, like almost 40% of the US workforce today uses at least one AI tool in some form or shape, right? And that could like double or triple as we kind of go along.
That's perfect. Thank you. We have a kind of a comment here from the audience in the Q&A. So Ed was saying, are you also thinking within the governance process, there could be tasks that require approval before AI takes the action? AI notifies you, then can approve or deny the action. And yes, like this makes me think about the need for having a human in the loop, right? Like that's become a term we're hearing a lot more of, right? So we have this person or this group of people that are assigned certain tasks just to review what the AI is doing, right? And give it context. So my question And Ian, maybe we'll go to you because I know you're dealing with a lot of this right now around trust and what we give AI access to, right? How much can we trust these things? Are there specific tasks that we can say, yes, you're going to run fully autonomously, right? Whereas there are certain tasks at an organization level where there should be a human in the loop. And what should that feedback loop or at least approval process really look like?
Yeah, so there still is risk, right? So even though it's gotten a lot better, there is still risk. These things are not deterministic, right? There is statistical variance in output generated, and so if it's a really important thing and the consequences can be very high, then there should be a human in the loop. So, for example, something that involves a payment, maybe you want a human in the loop, but maybe if it involves a payment of less than, I don't know, $10, maybe it's okay if there isn't a human in the loop. So it's really about like the consequences of if something goes wrong, what could be the implications. So one of the things that we do at Fellow, every time we have a call, after the call, we want to know a bunch of things across different calls. So for example, if there's feature requests, or product feedback, it goes in a specific channel. Or if it's things like where did you hear about us, and that there's an interesting anecdote that automatically gets pulled and it gets put into a channel. That's a low risk thing. It's within our own company. It doesn't affect anybody. Or say that we're about to have a customer call and we want to help our sales team prep for that call. We can even maybe draft an email for them to help them, basically craft the email and send it out. But we won't do it. We won't send it automatically on their behalf. We will want them to review the content just to make sure. So we're still not at the point that we would just completely, leave things when it's external, high consequences. If something goes wrong, we tend to put a human in the loop in all of those processes.
That's perfect. Thank you for that. We've got another one here from Dominic. As much as this will help diligent people do more, I think we are learning that more people use technology to cut corners and do less. Interesting. What systems will be or should be implemented to ensure satisfactory output and some level of human expertise in the final product? This is a really interesting one for me. Diligent people, cutting corners and doing less. I think operationally, like I'll start by answering this, and then anyone else can jump in. But I think operationally, like me, I am not the type of leader who is micromanaging. I'm not looking at how things are done. I look at the end results. I look at the output to say, is the work done? Right? Does it meet our standards? If they have quote unquote cut corners to get there, but the output is solid and it fits within the requirements or the guidelines, then who am I? Right? Because we've saved time by quote unquote cutting corners and doing less. But is that a bad thing? Right? Like we can now move on to do something else. And so the question here, and anyone can jump in, what systems will be or should be implemented to ensure satisfactory output? I think this is kind of on the human in the loop. What standards should we be setting for ourselves, or should we just leave it to these individual contributors to produce the output without, having those, checks and balances in place? And I'll leave that question open to anyone in the group.
I can share my perspective here. Um, I think if you have a structure that you kind of like already established, I think it makes it seem like you have a bar that you are expecting everyone to meet, right? Even within humans or I think setting that bar or that standard of saying this is the level of quality at which we expect something will possibly mean that people aren't using AI to cut corners, but are actually getting there to get to that same outcome that much more faster, right? So in fact, if somebody is able to use the AI in a really good way and get to that outcome, commend them, like not throw them under the bus for using that, right? Like if they're able to get there, I think that's a commendable act, right? They've been able to use the technology at hand to get you to an output that you wanted the team to get to. The other fact that I see is there is always going to be control for the human in the loop. Like in this case, if the AI is taking action to create a brief, it's not going to publish it without an approval step in the loop, right? So it's going to ask you saying, okay, am I good to publish this, right? And you go read through it, give it feedback. You can go back and forth. And then you can say, okay, now it's ready to kind of like mainstream get published, right? So the human can also continue to add value. So that's why it's not a replacement. It's going to be a leverage for you to like go that much more faster to market.
That's perfect. Thank you for that, Manish. Maggie, you have a thought, please?
Yes, if I can add on what you both said, I feel like it's really important for enterprise to have clear objectives, and also making sure that you give some reaction feedbacks on those objectives. It's quite often we see managers that are unsatisfied for work and they don't give retroaction, or it's hard to give retroaction because you need to be confident and you need to confront somebody with like a bad quality of work, and it's challenging. So I would say AI will enable you to be more productive and maybe have a better quality, but you need to stay in the loop as a manager too, and make sure you have those communication with your employees. If you identify one behavior that you don't like, or if you identify that your employees are cutting corner, make sure to communicate that and identify the why they are doing it. Because sometimes the reason why is not the reason that you think about. It can be because they're overwhelming. It can be because they have too many things on their plate. So understanding the reason why people are cutting corners is also super important to be a good manager and help your employee to understand what is your actual target, or how you want them to work in the future. It's easy to be frustrated about something when you don't understand. Making sure you have those moments with them to communicate and to learn about them. Maybe it's just because they're lazy, but there's also a lot of other possibility. And I would say, as a manager, to be open to those other possibility will enable you to grow and help your team grow.
Yeah, this is great. Aiden.
Yeah, I was gonna just put like a different flavor on this as well. So the tricky thing for anyone who's in a leadership position is that you need to increase your expectations. Like, this is part of the game. Because AI now exists, your expectations from your team need to be more. You can't have the same expectations, because if your expectations don't change and it gets easier to do the work, then yeah, you're going to have, basically not super efficient and productive organization. But part of the job now in the new era is that you have to continuously increase your expectations of your team. And the only way to meet those expectations ultimately are going to be if AI is used. So by raising your expectations, not only do you, help people grow, but you also increase the AI adoption, which helps the company grow as well. Um, the minimum bar for everything has risen, right? Because of all the things that you can now do, the base level expectations are just higher. The opportunity is also higher. But again, it's just going back to this idea of everybody's moving up the stack. The minimum expectations are higher. And it's a really nice thing to have high expectations from people, because that's how people grow, right? People want to be in a place where their leaders expect more of them. Like, nobody wants to be in a place where you're expected less, people expect less things from you. You want to grow, and growth is part of human happiness. So I think that's the mental shift that leaders need to have.
That's a great perspective. I love that. We're coming up on time here for the panel, and Aiden, you did this so well. I was on Aiden's podcast a few weeks ago discussing different AI use cases and AI Studio, and you asked, like, what does your future of AI look like? Like, think like way down the road. What's your ideal like use case, and where are we heading? And so I'm gonna flip that and just hear from the group. Think a year down the road, and we know how quickly AI changes. Next week, AI could be completely different. So like a year feels like a millennia, right? At this point, but where do we see agentic AI fitting into everyday teamwork. What are your predictions? What are your thoughts? Or what would you like to see this transform into? Manesh, why don't we start with you? I know you know a lot of what's happening. Maybe you can't share, but give us your predictions. Why don't you?
My prediction is going to be very straightforward. I think companies will move from AI being like this side experiment of let's just go try it to becoming like the habit, right? Like everybody has tools, they're empowered, they've learned. So there's a little bit of like this aspect of literacy that we're going through now. So people are like getting the education, they'll be enabled. So everybody starts to operate in a way where AI becomes like a teammate, right? They're part of your team. They're not a tool, they're not a product, they're not on the outside layer. They are going to be an essential layer, part of your teams. People are starting to like similar on the tone of what Aiden said. People will up level themselves, right? Like things that you've been doing all along for the last decade become things that you don't care about in a year's time, right? You will focus your energy towards what is the next skills that I need to hone. Sometimes it could be very different from your job, right? Like if you remember, like 2 decades back when we went on a road trip, you had a physical map, right? And you had to look at every turn. GPS comes along, it's like, okay, I just need to focus on when it tells me to turn, I take that exit. And now future forward, there's self-driving cars. Like if you come to San Francisco where I live, you will see Waymos across every street. There's no driver. It can take you even in the most safest way possible. Like agentic AI and the AI evolution will do that for you, right? Like things that you're doing now probably are things that you will like share the little layers of, and you're like, okay, what else do I need to upskill? And that's the trend that will start to evolve, where we'll all raise the boats. We'll all raise ourselves and our teams.
That's great. Love that. Maggie, what are your thoughts? What are your predictions?
Yes, I'm pretty aligned with GPS or map. Well, the difference between map and GPS, I have a big problem with GPS because without it, I'm completely lost. But in the future, how I would see the agentic AI fitting into our everyday work, I would say I think it's going to be embedded in every workflow. Yeah, from project intake, approval, resource allocation, cross-functional notification, and even reporting. I think it's just going to be in every workflow, and it's going to become a key pillar for differentiation among companies. The race will be about who has the most advanced features and not who has AI in their company. So I say it's going to be a shift.
Perfect. Aiden, once you round us out, what are your predictions, your thoughts on, based on all the information you're gathering day to day and how you're thinking about even moving Fellow forward into the future?
Yeah. So I have a friend, CEO of a very large company, and he has this like office of the CEO, and there's a group of maybe like 10 or 15 people that are strictly like focused on delivering the things. Like this is separate than like, traditional org structure and so on and so forth. And so things, a day could look like I wake up, I have an idea, but in order to further this idea, I need like two people to jump off and do research, one other person to go and like gather the research and like turn it into a memo. Like this is all stuff that physically happens, but was being done with people, right? Again, you have to be a very large company to have the luxury of that kind of thing. But that is partially already here. And it's going to be even more here, where it's not just a teammate, it's just a group of, you will have a whole organization reporting to you and working for you. And it's just up to you how much you want to leverage them. And similar to what I said before about like your expectations, leaders having high expectations, over the course of time, our expectations from the organizations that will report to us, made out of AI agents, that will increase as well. So there's almost like an infinite leverage coming, and it's very exciting. And what I would say is just raise your expectations for your AIs over the next year.
That's perfect. I'm so looking forward to that future. Thank you so much for joining us for this panel. Manesh, thank you for taking the time. I know you're very, very busy over there at Asana. I can't thank you enough for being here and joining us.
Love it. Thank you so much, Marky, for having all of us. And I think this was a very fantastic conversation. If for folks, I'll just say one parting line. If you love the product, there's a lot of things that happen in my team that gets you there. So feel free to give us feedback if there's things that you feel like, oh, I wish Asana did X, Y, and Z. Feel free to share those as well. We'll be happy to continue the partnership.
Awesome. And Maggie, thank you so much. I know I'm taking you away from client calls today and, working on things at Surface, but thank you for sharing. Looking forward to your panel later on. Thanks for the time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion with all of you.
Perfect. And finally, Aiden, appreciate you coming on here. I know leading a company, especially one that's as forward-thinking as yours at Fellow. Appreciate your time and your thoughts and insights from a bit of a different perspective today. Appreciate you jumping on.
This was fun. Thanks for having me.